All right, Jeff. Thanks so much for jumping on. I'll do a quick intro and then I'll let you jump in and share a little bit about yourself. So Jeff and I met at Elastic Path while he was there. I was helping implement Visible at the time, which is now Marketo Measure, as we all know. And since then, Jeff and I have kept in touch mostly through LinkedIn, and I've always been thoroughly impressed with his MOPs skills and knowledge. Even when we worked together at Elastic Path, you would ask questions, you push into those things, and I want to get into that, a little bit of that today. But Jeff, share a little bit about yourself. You're Canadian, which is awesome. You got the Uberflip in the background. So what are you doing now? What's your background? Give a little insight of who you are.
So thank you for that glowing introduction. I really appreciate that. And I'm actually thrilled. I feel the same way. I was thrilled to be able to work with you. You have a good reputation in the industry as well. So when I got to, I had heard of you before I started working with you. We're already at you were at Adobe previously, I think, and then went to Lead MD. And so it was really great. It was really, it's sort of like, are there celebrities in marketing ops? And I try to, like Daryl. All I have to say is Daryl, and everybody knows who Daryl is, right?
Exactly.
He's like the Drake of marketing ops kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
So, Daryl, if you're listening, I hope you do actually see this and let us know you saw it. I bought your book too, kind of thing. But he knows I bought his book. I totally lost track of where we're going. So
no worries. So where are you at? You were at Elastic Path. You've made a few moves within your marketing career here, your marketing ops creation. You're now at Uberflip. But kind of give a little bit of background of that progression, what that looks like for you.
Sure. So I actually, like many people in marketing ops, started off in the advertising industry, and I was doing workflow automation in the advertising industry. Started off many years ago doing pre-press, then moved into the design studio, then ad agency side, just bigger opportunities, bigger projects to solve and automate. Working with databases and automating pagination production. That naturally leads into email marketing as email marketing agencies start doing email marketing, right? Start working with MailChimp, and then you get involved with Pardot and Salesforce. This was my background, right?
Yeah.
At the time, I also got very interested in Mautic. Sorry. So many one-word marketing automation platform names out there, right? But anyway, Mautic had their, I think, GM golden release in 2014. David Hurley was one of the creators of it. It was huge in the open source movement. I started a marketing automation user group here in Vancouver. Loved the product. It was actually later acquired by Acquia, and I actually became a partner too for Mautic when they originally tried, and then Acquia bought it. And now at that time, I had already moved into sort of working for end users as opposed to offering consulting services and that. But my path, I went into sort of from ad agency. I started doing a bunch of work for digital agencies, a number of digital agencies. And that gave me the experience to end up in B2B, and ended up working at a very global enterprise software company, SAP. And I was there for just under a few years. Then I actually after that, I did a Mautic project for another company that wanted to dump Salesforce Marketing Cloud and adopt Mautic. And it had its own challenges. You generally don't go and get an open source solution because you want to save money. You do it because you want to protect your data differently, right? Yeah. And that was the really big benefit of Mautic, was you could basically run it on-prem or you're in your own VPN and protect that data in your way, as opposed to relying on Marketo or Salesforce to do that for you. And
so let me ask you something, Jeff, in that, like, as you're progressing in your career, one of the big debates is like marketing attribution tools and things like that. And obviously that came in the scene probably a little bit later at that point. But one of the common themes is that you're always bidding for revenue, right? So even as you're working through these tools, and you're running through that, was there a challenge of identifying within the marketing department how to come back and attribute to specific marketing initiatives? Were you running into that early on, or was that something that happened later on?
No, that was actually really early on.
Yeah.
It was less important when you're working with a single customer and you're running single campaigns, running a newsletter,
Right.
running a promotion. You're spending $10,000-$15,000 at a time, kind of thing. But at enterprise, it's very, very different because you're spending $1 million, and you're promoted. At the time, ebooks were very popular, gated content.
Yeah.
You're spending $50,000 to get an ebook developed, to written and developed, and then you're spending far beyond that and promoting it. And across many channels, you want to be able to track the results across each channel. You want to be able to source those new accounts from each channel if they're going to be net new accounts.
Right, because you already spent thousands of dollars to create an ebook. Now you're spending money to promote it across all these different channels.
Yes.
Right. And
now,
so you're trying to figure out, like,
where do they come from, right?
Yeah.
Which channels have your typical thing of, well, what is why do people buy attribution tools? Is, they want to identify where their spend is best used. And so the team I was on, essentially the scrappy business unit I was on was filled with some very smart people. And this one fellow doing the paid media, Ian McKinnon.
Good name.
Yeah, just a smart guy here in BC. Had his own agency, gone to enterprise. I was very fortunate to work with him. But he basically introduced me to Supermetrics. And so he was basically pulling all of his data for himself, all his raw data in for with Supermetrics from all the paid media channels.
What is Supermetric? Is that a BI tool? Is that a data warehouse?
It's middleware. So Supermetrics.
Oh, okay, middleware.
Got right, it. And you can basically you do it. You put it as a plugin into Google Sheets, and you can pull in all your GA data. You can pull in all your paid media data. There's a free version of it, which just pulls in your Google Analytics data. But then if you want to start to connect into your Facebook,
it's all like top of funnel anyways, right?
Yeah.
So yeah. If you want to get further down into the funnel, you pay for the premium and you're able to plug in more.
Right. And so basically, we had the premium version. Maybe it was $1,000 a year. It was pulling in all this data. And then I thought, wow, this is a great opportunity to actually connect this with our converted data, right? Our actual converted and program, like Marketo program data. So I just used Zapier to pull that data in as well into Google Sheets. And so we basically had this Google Sheet that became slower and slower over time as
more data
it filled into it. But basically we had tabs with all the raw data from each individual channel. We had the tabs pulling in the raw data from each individual from Marketo, and then we had some sheets or tabs in there that would pull the data together, then sort of cumulative tables that just put everything into a nice chart, right? And then we had that chart then linked to a Google's Google presentation, which is PowerPoint, right? Essentially.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
and
exactly.
What would happen is we just have to every week just check this through the week, make sure the data was populating correctly, nothing got missed. Sometimes data would get missed and you'd have to push it through again, make sure the numbers added up, and then just go into the Google presentation, hit update, and it would update all the way through, and then it would get sent off, and you could just email it off to senior leadership, right?
Man, that's great. It's a lot of process, a lot of development though.
The development it took a while, but it worked really, really well.
And so when you're attributing in that, is it like a single touch attribution at that point, or was it able to break down, like, here's all the points of engagement and kind of does a linear breakdown of here's the path and an equal distribution across it?
Yeah, so it captured first touch and lead creation. So even before I was learned about Visible, I was already doing first touch, being
the Google
paid
data.
Yeah, well, I define things. I know some people just do paid and organic. I like to break it down further. I like to say paid search, paid social, paid display. For organic, I break it into organic social, organic search, and then organic direct, right? Generally organic direct doesn't really mean organic direct. It just means we're missing part of the story. Where did they actually?
But it's a data value that you need to know, right?
Yeah.
Because to your point, like if it just all buckets there, it's harder to identify that missing data point, right? So, yeah, I mean, this is why I was so glad you were willing to jump on to attribution time, because the way when we worked together at Elastic Path, I was trying to sell. The company already bought Visible, Marketo Measure, and you had come in as running the MOPs organization there, and one of the first things that you asked is like, well, how is this any different than what Marketo Engage does? Like because you had this like great background of attribution. You understood how these tools worked. Like you've developed your own attribution tool in essence. Then you knew I think you're a wizard in Marketo Engage, right? I mean, and so you're like, Marketo Engage can do attribution. And I was like, I'm not going to disagree with you, but there's this additional piece. And I think the turning point there may have been like the metadata that we were able to gather with Measure. I'm not sure what the turning point of like, here's the big value piece to it, but break down a little bit as you moved and you progressed. Marketing attribution tools began to do attribution, right? They began to see like there's a value add here, and Marketo I think was really the best at doing it within the attribution, or I'm sorry, with the automation platforms. I don't know many tools that were pulling in CRM data to pull in costs and trying to attribute membership to those things. So tell me a little bit around, what you're currently doing for attribution, if you're doing it at all. Are we sitting in Marketo? Like what are you seeing, or what are you currently using, and what are you seeing in the world of attribution at this point?
Sure. So just one quick reference to when our time at Elastic Path. One of the really cool things about it was I liked being able to see the different weighted values and change, being able to change from first touch, last touch, U-shaped, W-shaped. It was really nice that in real time, essentially, it was calculating all those values. And I believe before I left, we did upgrade to tier 2 because at the time we wanted to be able to build custom weighted formulas, right?
That's right. Yeah.
And I had an opportunity at that time to join Magnitude in a director role. And so one of the things when I got there was they actually had it, and this happens with many organizations, is they've bought Revenue Explorer, RCA, Revenue Cycle Analytics, I think it was.
Yeah, it's changed every year. It's going to change its name, sure. But yeah,
12-year-old technology. Like when you launched it, the server said the URL in the server was RCA 2012, right?
Yeah.
But it was really good. We actually there was one instance of Marketo when I was at SAP that did use it, but it didn't get detailed enough. And this is why Visible really became popular, I think, is people liked RCA, but Visible gave you so much more information. And realistically with Visible, because it looked at, if you had a really solid UTM strategy, I realized this was, if you had a solid UTM strategy off every link you ever put out there, you could actually just have all your leads coming into Marketo in one Marketo program, and not even worry about your lead conversion program, because you would have that in your UTM data under UTM campaign.
Exactly.
And so Visible could actually show you every touch point that you ever had, just as long as they all had their own well-written UTM campaign value.
Yeah, that metadata. Yeah, you nailed it, because we see in Marketo, I don't know if you, what I see a lot in Marketo is they have a paid program. So it's paid Facebook program, a paid LinkedIn program, a paid but to your point, like they don't have the additional UTM data living there. It gets ingested, right? It's in you can look at in the activities, you could see all that, but then it's hard to keep writing that onto a single field and tracking the continual engagement. So you have this dilemma of, well, we can create one program to monitor how people are coming in, or we can create a new program every single time we launch a paid initiative and try to track it that way. And it's still just, it's a little bit clunky in essence. And you nailed it on the head. Tools like Measure, and there's other tools out there that do it. It's just if your UTM structure is really, really solid, you can pull in all of that data and see all of that right there for you. And you can get that high level data in your marketing automation platform as far as how do we acquire them, but then you can see the entire journey, the continual engagement because of those UTMs. Yeah, I mean, that's a perfect story, perfect analogy of like what can actually, what the value of a tool like that.
I think one of the big things that people in our roles do, and this is actually something Forrester actually is now pushing this as well. I did a webinar with a Forrester analyst. This is for Uberflip, and it was 6 months ago maybe. It's on the Uberflip website, but Forrester is already saying the same thing that I was saying, and probably people like Daryl and all our peers are saying, is that we've always been very reactive, right? We'll spend some, marketers will spend some money, then they'll come to marketing ops and say, can we see some attribution? We want to show ROI on this. Did we actually spend our money well? Did we have any conversions? And then we start to look at building a report, and we discover, oh, well, we actually can't give you a good report because you didn't use any UTM values, or
your data's bad.
Enough UTM values, right?
Yep.
Now,
Yep.
a tool like Visible is really good because you can check the refer, right?
Yeah,
but
exactly.
Visible, like anything in marketing ops, these point solutions are just making things easier for you.
Yep.
You can actually just do everything in Marketo. The base Marketo was so brilliantly built. The interface, was a little slow. Adobe's really slow to improve the interface. So I agree with like my HubSpot, my sort of HubSpot peers on LinkedIn who bash Marketo about the interface being from 2006. And it's like, well, it's actually 2008 was when they said their first license was January 2008. And, from what I've heard from some of the founders of Marketo. And, it takes time to get away from that three-dimensional weird anthropomorphism, whatever the word is called, icons, and get to the two-dimensional stuff you see that Adobe's been using. Oh my gosh, totally went off on a tangent. I tend to do that.
No, I think that's spot on. Like there's a bit of the optimization there, and I think that's why people on Marketo are moving to an attribution tool. I mean, because the base of the tool of Marketo is great. The enhancements, are I would like to say that they're going to come, but these other tools like HubSpot and some other ones are acknowledging like we need to enhance. How do we get this data? How do we run it? And HubSpot has an attribution tool. I did a video on kind of the comparison of HubSpot attribution versus Measure attribution. And, at the end of the day, I think Drew Smith does it best from Attributa. Not only, just as you need someone on your team to focus only on attribution, you also need a tool to be dedicated to attribution, because, HubSpot's a great product. They continue to update and optimize and do things, but it's only within the ecosystem, or most of the time within the ecosystem of HubSpot. And so it's like the attribution can only go so far. So I actually think there's value in these third-party tools that come in and just solely focus on attribution, because it's like, this is what they're designed to do, right? They're not going to go off and like, well, you didn't plug this in correctly. It's like, it's designed to be able to adapt to your marketing initiatives, whatever they may be, and be able to collect all that additional metadata, which is just so rich. And so I think that there's a ton of value in that, and that piece within attribution, and having a dedicated person, but also having a dedicated tool to that. One thing I think is also funny in the attribution world that, I know you're also active on LinkedIn here, is the idea of, well, two pieces that you said. I'll come back to the other one, but is the idea of, well, just ask the customer how they heard about you. And I'm like,
they don't remember.
Yeah, I'm like, who, you're gonna trust that? Like, you're gonna trust that as like, that's where you need to invest? Like, sure, that's what they say, Google, and so you're just like, that's fine, but I can't tell you how many times I've looked at someone's data and they spend millions of dollars in Google, and the outcome is not nearly as good as an event, right? And it's just like one of those, like, that's your connection point. You're going to fully rely on someone just telling you that. Like, I just think that's really interesting, right? I think that's, I just think it's humorous. Like, you need additional data, you need metadata. Like, you live in a world now where we have the technology to collect all this information, and you're just going to rely on that as your source of truth. It's not bad. It's just that should not be your sole answer in my mind.
And that, you're absolutely right. And so whether you use visible, whether you use, I say visible, it's measure.
You can call it whatever you want. I won't say it. I won't tell people you said the B word.
Here's the thing: people still refer to Adobe Campaign as Neil Lane. People still refer to Adobe Analytics as Omniture. Even back in 2016, I was calling it Omniture. By 2018, I was still calling it Omniture, even though it was clearly had been Adobe Analytics Adobified, and that's what I even call about the transition to Marketo. Marketo probably has this secret plan of eventually calling it Adobe Engage, right? And Adobe Measure, but people will still call it Marketo 10 years from now, even though there'll be no remnants of purple left anywhere. But the point I was trying to make where I just kind of got lost on a tangent there was, whether you build it or buy it, Marketo has everything you need in terms of operational functionality to build on with everything you need, including sophisticated routing rules, right?
But a huge ad.
There's some amazing platforms out there that can do routing for you. Synchrony is one of the newest ones on the block. Synchrony can do a lot more, but lead routing is like table stakes for that platform. Or you can go totally specialized and you look at lean data, right? All amazing platforms, but when I got to, so this kind of takes us into Magnitude and what I was doing it for attribution at Magnitude. Because we did basically, they had, I started to say how they had RCA, but it actually had never been used. I don't even think it had ever been launched. It had been installed, but never been launched. So when our contract came up for renewal, I was like, basically, I actually ended up, I wanted to shut down the Marketo instance because it was very old. It had numerous owners over the years, no documentation, just normal business things that happen over time. Nobody's fault. It's just how business works. You've seen it too, right?
Yeah, totally.
Well, 6 years, it was, said 8 years in, it was time to spin up a new Marketo instance. So Marketo was really good about it. We spun up a concurrent instance, built it new, migrated over what we needed to do. I had a whole project management plan. I had a whole Gantt sheet built out, showing, for every task that needed to be done. We're talking about switching over 8 products, 8 sales teams, everything, right? But basically got that built into the new Marketo system, had lead routing built in, because had to deal with multiple product interests, had to deal with account ownership, sending alerts when there was new interest on a product that this account owner didn't have a specialization in this other product interest. So, but I got it working. And I built out a spreadsheet first with an order of operations as my first tab, how this logic was going to run down. And then I kept this essentially master spreadsheet of who owned what accounts, et cetera. And then I could just go in and update, look at that, make changes there, then go in and update very quickly inside Marketo. within these individual flow steps. I could set things up correctly.
Yeah.
Lean data would have been so much easier to use, or we could have built it in Salesforce, right? It's 6 of one, half a dozen of another was an expression that I like to use.
Totally.
But one of the things too is we rolled out Visible, and the information in there was so rich and so vast. One of the things though is we didn't really like the Looker interface. That when you went into Visible Discover, which is their interface for the analytics, it was built on Looker. They licensed Looker for that interface. Our senior leadership really did not like it. It was they really wanted to see the information presented in a different way. And our BI analyst, this fellow Jason Howe, so smart, so impressed, so fortunate to have worked with him. Really knew Power BI really, really well, but beyond that, just understood data and understood data modeling and understood relational data, and was literally able to take all that raw data out of all that Salesforce data that was getting populated, in like all the individual touch points that Visible was capturing, all the weighted values, and he was essentially able to rebuild all this in Power BI and an interface in Power BI where you would literally just pick, okay, I want to see, our fiscal quarter, okay, this fiscal quarter, this product interest. We would see the campaigns, and I worked with the CMO to build out what this would look like first in a spreadsheet, right? Like
what's your KPIs? What's your KPIs? What are we trying to show here? You at the highest level, what is it that we need to get at? Because you knew the data was there, right? You knew you had it. You just need to understand, how do we need to convey this?
Yes, and so you could end up literally building. This was beyond what the Discover tool could do in Visible, right? Now, unfortunately, Magnitude got acquired. That Jason, moved on, I think, to Boomi, doing really well. It was a really good team on the sales ops side. I hope that's okay to mention these people. I'm so thrilled to have worked. So thrilled to have worked with them. I actually did my LinkedIn when I did my LinkedIn post when I was leaving Magnitude to go to Uberflip. I thanked all these people for just. I was so fortunate to have worked with them. But anyway, this Power BI layout that he built was so amazing. It gave you so much information. But this leads into a challenge, and that is, who needs to see this data? At what point where do you stop presenting this data? Because I built this I built the look and feel and the expectation working with the CMO, and then working with Jason, who actually implemented it and actually took our thoughts around how we wanted data to look, and he made it work, right, by understanding the data model so well. To the point where I think the CMO, if he had to present this, and I think he experienced these challenges, is when you go into senior leadership meetings and you say, well, look, marketing has all these identified touch points on all these opportunities now, and it rolled out perfectly, right? From first touch, lead creation, opportunity creation. If we wanted to go look and see all the details in between, we could. And we had the weighting in the Power BI tool as well. We could basically see, all right, this $100,000 formula, this $100,000 opportunity. Actually, we were dealing with very expensive, very high-priced opportunities. We could get it down to the penny. How much marketing influenced, right? But
were you plugging from Salesforce, or did you end up buying a data warehouse from like the Visible or Marketo Measure data warehouse?
We had our own data warehouse as it was, but no.
So were you just plugging Salesforce data into that and then transforming it?
Exactly. If you wanted to pull in, you could have pulled in the data yourself, use this Snowflake data warehouse, but it wasn't going to happen with us because we sold our own data warehouse, right?
Right. Yeah. No, I think that's a great example of having someone who understands data and how that can just take it that much further, because we're in I said this earlier, we're in a day and age where there's so much additional data in which you can collect. And we've been in this stage for a while, but we're seeing a boom within people becoming data analysts. We're seeing a boom in Power BI or business intelligent tools. And again, even within AI, being able to gather that data and be able to visualize that at a very quick pace. Like we're at a level where this is only going to continue to advance. And if you don't have something to collect all of that for you, it's going to be really hard, like to continue to say we have value in this. We have a foot in the game here. Like it's going to be hard to do. Yeah, I think that's spot on in that. And I love that, it is that easy just to be able to plug in Salesforce data because it all lives there, and to be able to visualize it where you need to, optimize it where you need to. Because even Salesforce, they have Tableau now, but to really get what you're looking for is at that level. And another thing that I love that you called out is start with the executive team. Understand what the need is there, right? And then you can always work down, right? Because every department's going to have their own KPIs. Every department's going to have something in which they need to measure. But if you start at the executive level and get that buy-in, understand what that is, it makes it a lot easier for you to understand, okay, where do we need to invest these dollars? How do we need to do this? Because you understand what the overall objective is there. And so I think that's just such a great call out in that.
One of the things that I was very fortunate to work with the CMO to build this out, and it's really important for the CMO to be involved in this and to know this, because they're the one who are basically saying, yeah, okay, you've got our multi-million-dollar budget. How is this breaking down? They're going to talk to their VP. They're going to talk to, then the VP has their managers. Each manager owns their specific products. They own their specific spends. And that's where the touch point data becomes really, really important to show success around individual campaigns. But of course, at the senior leadership level, they don't care. When the CMO goes and is in a meeting with the rest of senior leadership, including the VP sales, they don't talk about paid media, right? They basically say we spent $1.2 million and it impacted $4 million in opportunities, right? And it actually should be greater at, what you want it to be, just keep going up.
Yeah, exactly.
But now what can happen is when individual opportunities, large opportunities, $5.5 million deals, whatever, are discussed, sales is going to say, yeah, marketing didn't touch that. We closed it. But what can happen is within our data, we can actually show that, look, there's 73 touch points in here across multiple contacts that at that account that are connected to this opportunity. Sales is going to say, yeah, but you guys don't get any credit, you're marketing. And that is the issue. And this is actually even something in your book, right? Because, where you use the word credit in your book, which actually is true, it is the right word to use, but credit is such a loaded word that I've actually encouraged people in conversations not to use the word credit, but to say influence or touch point, right? Because you don't want to get, when you're talking to people who work on commission, their
livelihood.
Their livelihood, yes, right? Yeah. And if you start saying, well, we get credit, you're threatening their livelihood, even though that's not what your intention is. So the program, did marketing, in terms of actually saying, look, well, we're spending X amount on marketing, X amount on sales. We need sales. Without a sales team, without good closers, you're not doing any business, right?
That's right.
You still need really smart, savvy, nice people to close deals, and without them, the deals don't happen. Doesn't matter how much work marketing puts in. So,
that's right.
And I think that you need to respect that, right?
Yeah.
And so that's why I've started to move away from using credit. I know that the word credit is exactly the right word, because you on a spreadsheet, you need to show 22% per 22.5% per touch point, right? For first touch, lead creation, opportunity creation, sales is always going to have that last 22.5% because you're just breaking it down into crediting the number of steps, right? It does equate to a dollar value, but you don't get any dollars without sales. That's really what I'm pushing here. And so,
no, I this piece right here is absolutely huge, because when people buy an attribution tool, no matter what it is, typically starts in the marketing department, because they actually have to say, we come in here, we have influenced these things, right? Because to your point, you nail it on the head. Sales is always going to get that full credit because it's their livelihood. It's what they own. This, I mean, this is, I'm going to cut this out because this is perfect. Every marketer needs to hear this, because at the end of the day, you have to be able to come in, understand that sales is going to have that. But as a marketing team, you have to show your influence. I think that is essential. And that is exactly what attribution tools are doing. That is why you can't go in, just ask someone, how'd you hear about this? Like, you need to understand what's the overall influence in this. It is absolutely essential. And I just think I could not have said it better, Jeff. And I just, that is like, if I could get anything out of when I engage with customers and clients who are trying to understand attribution, I think that is one of the biggest things I try to get to them. So I love that you called that out. We're hitting up on our time here, and so I want to be sensitive to that. So what I want to call out, or what I like to do at the end of every session, was kind of a gotcha question or a surprise question. Jeff does not know this is coming. I do this with all of those that I have on. It's something fun, but one thing that when we worked together that you mentioned, and I was like, I love this idea, and I probably will end up doing this at some point in my life because I think it's so great, is you mentioned that you did not have a driver's license.
That's right.
And I was like, that's because you're like, I don't have to pay insurance. I don't need to do that. And I was like, man, there's gonna be a stage in my life where, and I think we're getting to that because of Uber or whatever, but I'm just like, I can just simply, call someone up, drive me to where I need to go. Like, I just think it's just so great. Is this still a thing, Jeff? Is this like, are you still living the driver's license less life? Give me an update on that.
So I'm still driver license less, and it is actually, depending on the city too. My understanding is that in New York, this is very common. A lot of teens, 20-somethings are not getting their licenses. Now, one of my sons, when he was 16, he was at the license bureau on his birthday to get his learner's permit. He loves cars. He would buy little, Hondas and Acuras that could be modded. He liked those small subcompact cars. He would go to the meetups at night where all these guys would get together and show their cars, sort of a safer, tamer meetup, like what you would see in Fast and the Furious of all these people, but just without the criminal element kind of thing.
Sure.
And he was modding his cars, and to the point where he ended up learning how studying auto body repair, and then moving into estimating, and actually now has a job in a very good career job doing, and he's still young, like he's early 20s, and has a job as the youngest estimator at a large insurance company now.
Love that.
And so he's good at it because he knows what it costs to fix things, because he's fixed the stuff himself. He spent a year after the auto body program repairing cars, right? Knowing what, we'd always hear, like, don't buy it. Don't buy. Oh my God, I can't believe I can't remember this, right? Don't buy a Tesla. Only because if you crash it, you're going to wait forever for parts. Now, this was during COVID, so I don't think it really mattered, kind of thing. I think every car company had a problem with parts.
That was all across the board, right?
Yeah, we bought a new we had a 10-year-old car, a 10-year-old Honda CRV. I wanted to get a hybrid. I really like the style of the RAV4. We had to wait to get the color we wanted, kind of thing. But we're happy with that. So I've gone off on a tangent around the license. I've done the math. Okay, for
Give it to
me, and I'm not going to throw out the numbers, but basically it was like, what is it going to cost for me to have insurance as a new driver? Well, it actually turns out that, and I would probably have to go out and get my own car. So now all of a sudden it becomes cheaper for me just to Uber everywhere.
Totally.
However, I am a asynchronous work from home remote worker advocate.
Right.
So ultimately, I'm either doing something with family and they're driving, right? So my spouse, my children, they have drivers, they have licenses and vehicles. I'll be going with them, or I'm going with family who has a vehicle, or else if I'm just going to meet friends, I'll just take an Uber. I will occasionally take transit if it's outside of rush hour and I wear a mask. And I know that is probably going to be controversial, but buses are small enclosed spaces, and so I'm just going to wear a good N95 mask. And I know we've only got a few minutes left, and I really didn't get a chance to talk about Uberflip and what I do at Uberflip.
Yeah, give me a rundown of Uberflip.
Very quickly, I do want to throw out that actually all that touch point data, all that session data that people go out and buy, Google Analytics 360 or Google Analytics Premium or all this stuff, all that UTM information, that's actually all captured in the Uberflip hub. So if you're an Uberflip customer, you don't realize it unless you ask about it, I guess, but all that touch point and attribution data is sitting in there for you to just ask the right question of within the Looker, because there's Uberflip Analytics, right, which is powered on by Looker. You as the customer can just go in there, and if you have the Explore license with it, then you can go and write your own exploration and find all that touch point data, or you can just have ask to get a report built, right?
Because Uberflip, for those who don't know, you create all this content and you needed to make it accessible, and you can create like kind of basically your own branding page. You can share the content, sales can use this content, and so there's a ton of people ingesting or that are using and ingesting that data, and it's free content. You could gate it if you wanted to, but it gives you that accessibility that it's highly versatile, and to be able to capture that, and to your point, you do need someone who's a little more data savvy to help you kind of gather all of that. It's all there. Yeah.
That was really one of the things that appealed to me, was my interest in attribution. And I was a fan of Uberflip back in 2016 when I first got exposed to them. So when an opportunity to work there came up, like, wow, right? And I was a great fit, great people there, love the people there, the leadership. And the tool, the platform, still has so much stuff left. It still has so much more growth still, and they have the engineering team and product teams to help develop that as well. But it's part of my journey with attribution as well. Being able to tie individual activity, individual engagement with a single piece of content and its influence on an opportunity, the success of an opportunity. And I think there's a few really good tools out there. I like how Uberflip does it. I like how Visible does it. But of course, it's buy versus build kind of thing.
Yeah, totally. Exactly.
But it depends on the size of your company, the number of assets you have, kind of thing. And it's kind of, I guess that's kind of where we end it. Right.
Yeah, this was awesome, Jeff. Thank you so much. I'm sure we'll meet again, and we'll continue the discussion, because I feel like there's a lot that we didn't even get around to cover today. But I appreciate you so much. I think you're a great knowledge to the MOPs space in general. I see your posts on LinkedIn, and so some of the key points that you called out as far as working with the executive team, talking about influence and all of those things. How do we approach these conversations that are just so beneficial? So Jeff, thank you so much for jumping on today, being a part of the call, being a part of Attribution Time, and helping me build this. So thank you.
Well, you're welcome, and thank you for including me in your journey as well. So.